I'm really thrilled to welcome my old friend Larry Elder, whom I've known, I think at least a decade, if not longer, syndicated radio host extraordinaire. In fact, on the Salem Network, the same network that sponsors this podcast, author of a number of important books, and now a very serious gubernatorial candidate for California, giving Gavin Newsom a run for his money and a big scare. Larry, welcome to the podcast. I gotta say, when you first declared, I thought you were doing this to kind of basically get the message out. I didn't think that you would pose a lethal danger to Gavin Newsom, but it seems like you do. What did you see about the race at the beginning that evidently I didn't?
Well, Dinesh, thank you for that. A lot of people felt the same way as you did. In fact, one of my opponents referred to my candidacy as a vanity campaign, and it kind of ticked me off. And I've been talking about these issues of crime and the rise of homelessness and the outrageous way this guy shut down this state while ignoring science, having his own kids enjoy in-person private education, the decline in the quality of public education in California, the ridiculous rolling brownouts we're having, the failure to adequately equip our water supply. We're running out of water here in California. I've been talking about these issues for 27 years. I'm on in every major market in California and radio, from Sacramento down to San Diego. I've had a syndicated column since April of 1998, where I've written a column every single week, over almost 1,200 columns. So I knew the issues. I have high name recognition. The only person I was worried about in terms of name recognition was Caitlyn Jenner. And with all due respect, I felt that I knew more about the issues than she did. So I was deadly serious. I knew I would pose a real threat, and it's worked out pretty much as I thought it would.
Well, Larry, I think what's striking about this is it's conventional wisdom that occasionally a Republican can sneak in and win a state like New York or California. But to do this, they have to be a major rhino. They have to be a very moderate Republican that's palatable to the Democrats in the state. I think what's striking about you're running a conservative campaign. You're hitting hard across the board, and yet you're striking a chord not just with Republicans and conservatives, but with moderates, and you're making inroads into Democrats. Talk about why is California receptive now to a full-throated conservative message?
Dinesh, because Californians are angry. About 1.7 million people signed that petition to recall him. A good third of them were people that voted for him just 2 years earlier, independents and Democrats. And among the Hispanics, which are the largest racial group, whether white, black, Asian American, in California, about 65% of them voted for him 2 years earlier. Now, the majority of Hispanics want him out. And the primary reason, in my opinion, is because of school choice. They know they're getting the worst education. Before the pandemic, nearly half of all third graders in California could not read at state levels of proficiency. 80% of the students in our government schools are Black and brown. And nearly 75% of Black boys cannot read at state levels of proficiency. So urban parents are beginning to realize they're getting ripped off, and it doesn't make any sense for them to routinely pull that lever for the Democratic Party. Then you have rising crime. Crime doesn't have a party, doesn't have a color. Homelessness doesn't have a party, doesn't have a color. The outrageous cost of living. For the first time, Dinesh, the average price of a home in California just hit $800,000. That's 150% above the national average. You add all these things up, the density of our fires, the severity of our fires because of poor forest management, rolling brownouts because of the failure to invest properly in our energy grid, and people have had it across the board.
Now, for the Hispanics, who are obviously a critical voting bloc in California, the left has always assumed that if they beat the drums of identity politics, and of course that was the basis of these attacks on you, Larry Elder's the blackface of white supremacy, and when you look, they just go down the litmus test. He's not for defunding the police. He's against sanctuary for illegals, as if these are signs of racism. Could it be that Hispanics in California are beginning to value upward mobility, lower taxation, safe streets more than they are the kind of traditional appeal to their racial identity?
Absolutely. And they're tired of being used. They're tired of being told that they're victims. And they're tired of the poor quality of schools and the crime that's gone up. We're talking about violent crime. Shootings have gone up, homicides have gone up, and the disproportionately affected by that are Black and brown people, the very people that the left claims that they care about. Just in Oakland the other day, Barbara Boxer got mugged, her cell phone was taken. And a few months before that, and mentally ill homeless guy attacked Gavin Newsom. Had Gavin Newsom not had his security detail, he probably would have been injured. How many black and brown people living in the inner city have a security detail around them? They are disproportionately the victims of the very crime that this man has allowed. Under his supervision, 20,000 convicted felons have been released early. Many of them are violent offenders, and based upon historical statistics, they're more likely to reoffend. Again, the people hurt by that are black and brown people living in the inner city, and they've had it. They're fed up, Dinesh. They've absolutely had it.
Larry, do you think at one time, as you know, California used to be Nixon country, used to be Reagan country? There was an important essay that the political scientist James Q. Wilson wrote years ago about how California represents the American dream. Do you think that California can pivot back more toward the political center? And second, can it become, as it once was, the embodiment of the American dream itself?
I think so. I think I'm going to be the new face of the Republican Party. I'm common sense. I'm from the inner city. I'm a product of public schools. I can talk to people in ways that a lot of Republicans haven't or have refused to. And if I can make a tangible improvement in the lives of people, if they see some of the people disappearing from the streets and being treated and being removed elsewhere, if they see an improvement in the quality of education, if they can remove their kids out of an underperforming government school and put them in a private school, religious school, or even homeschooling or a charter school, if they can see a decline in crime and they can see that my ideas, which are quite common sense, work, I think they're going to have to rethink their hostility toward the Republican Party. And that's one of the reasons I believe that Gavin Newsom is so afraid of me and has resorted to things like referring to this as a Republican takeover, a Trump takeover. But once I got into the race, Dinesh, they stopped saying that it's a takeover of white supremacists. For some reason, they dropped that talking point. But that didn't stop the LA Times. The LA Times referred to me as, quote, the black face of white supremacy, end of quote.
It just shows you how scared they are. Larry, let's close out by simply asking if someone wants to support your campaign, what's your website? Where do they go to be able to help you get across the finish line in this critical race at this critical time?
Well, thank you for that. You can go to electelder.com, electelder.com, because my opponent, Gavin Newsom, can raise and spend an unlimited amount of money. I have expenditure limitations, and already he's raised about $50 million from the usual suspects, the teachers union, the public sector unions, Hollywood, and big tech to defeat me. I'm probably going to be outspent by a factor of 10 to 1, but it doesn't matter. So many people are angry, as I pointed out. I don't care how much money they spend. People want to change. They want common sense, and they want to make sure that the streets are safe, that the schools work, and they have jobs.
Really appreciate it, Larry. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure as always.
See you in Sacramento, Dinesh.
For sure.